How many of y'all know about that Kirk Franklin right there? All right. Everybody hear me okay? Awesome. That's the way to get the day started off right there. All right. Oh, Stella Dinwiddie, you missed the party. I just turned the music down. Are you kidding me? Wow, all those folks that are just now getting on the call, y'all missed the entire jam session. You know what? That's all right. Catch it next time. I tried to let it roll out for a few minutes too to get everybody a chance to get on. That's all right. You watch the recording and check it out. So good morning. You see we got a few other folks that are still climbing on, which is fine. The numbers on the call are still growing. So we're going to go ahead and get kicked off here. And I'm going to pull up the leaderboards here. I'm trying to get to the email here real quick. So question real quick, Jeremiah, because I think you have the host code for this. Am I able to share my screen?
I don't have the host code, but you should be able to. If that share button in green is open there, you should have the ability to do that. Let
me just check. I don't know if it is or not. I mean, I'll cover the stuff when I get to certain sections. Just thought it might, if I'm able to share, I will.
Right by the participant tab, you'll see it says share.
There we go. All right, I'll see if I can do that once because I've got my computer up with no audio and I've got my iPad here, so I can do both. And I'll see if I can do that. So I'll try it when we get to that part and see if we can make this thing work. So I want to use some examples so folks can kind of see that. So. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get kicked off here. Last day of turn in for the month of February. Please make sure, first and foremost, that all of your pending business that you've got that's out there, that you've written, if you have not put it into opt, you need to make sure it's done, before end of the day today. Make sure that that's put in. Anything put in tomorrow will be March's numbers. Also, make sure you're following up with all of your carriers, pending business that's out there, and ensure that things are actually issued by today. If it issues Monday, it will be the March issue paid numbers. So again, that falls into understanding your business and how to stay on top of how you get paid, cash flow, right? So starting with the leaderboards, let's go ahead and get kicked off here. So last week, let's start here. At number 10, we had Miss Donna Bates with 4 applications for $26.84. Looks like we had Mr. Bill Cullum. I'm sorry, Donna's direct dispenser. Sorry about that. Bill Cullum with 2 apps for $28.81. Direct to Mr. Jeremiah Nolan. Mickey Kerr, new writer with 3 apps for $28.92. Again, direct to Mr. Jeremiah Nolan. Miss Stella Dinwiddie, 5 apps for $29.03, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. Then we had Mr. Jim Gerling with $39.28, direct to Jeremiah also. And then myself, 3 apps for $43.17, direct to Chris. Mr. James McKeon, the part-time king, trying to balance ADT and symmetry for the short term with 9 applications for 46.49 this last week, direct to myself. Mr. Jeremiah Nolan himself with 8 applications for 63.61, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. And then number 1 for the week, Mr. Spencer Kujan with 5 applications for 78.87, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee as well. So great job to everyone who went out and protected some families this last week and helped some folks. So looking at the agencies for last week, my team had 14 applications for $11,100. Chris's team had 15 apps for $14,650, and Mr. Jeremiah Nolan last week leading the pack for his team for 16 apps at $22,637 last week. So great job. Collectively, all of us contributed for 45 applications for $48,382 last week. So outstanding job to everyone on the team and going out there and helping some folks. Go ahead and shut that off there. Grab my notes here. So what I want to talk about today is there's 2 topics, right? And we could probably move on. Chris or Jeremiah, is there anything you wanted to add to that real quick before I move into the topics of the day from a leaderboard perspective? My apologies.
No, sir. I'm just we always make a last minute push at the end of the month, and we had a lot of people out really working hard. I know we still got some that's still out there in the field today. So
yep,
just keep pushing hard last day of the month.
Yep. I know that that Lionel Anderson wrote a couple apps for about $1,700-1,800 last night. Just was not able to get them into opt yet. Those will show up on after he gets those in today on the leaderboards that are posted Monday. So I know that for sure. And there's a couple of other folks that might not have been able to get their stuff in. So, but yeah. So what I really want to talk about today was something I think that most people struggle with early on, and I think it's a recurring theme that I hear from a lot of folks, just in general, both folks that have been around for a while and brand new people. People that are just getting started. And I think it's one of the common pitfalls or biggest hurdles or obstacles for folks to overcome. And what I wanted to do is just, again, I've only been in the insurance industry for 18 months now, and I never had an insurance license before I came here. So everything reinsurance related I've learned since I've been here. But the in-home customer engagement and that consultative sales approach I've done for the better part of 30 years. And so there's so many things that are from that world that are absolutely identical to what we do here. And that has helped me plug and play quickly. And so I wanted to share kind of some of the things that I do and that I've done that I've experienced, in my career that have helped me, both in the past and obviously in my journey here at Symmetry, but little things that you can make notes on, and maybe you do some of these things already. Maybe some things you're like, oh yeah, I need to get better at that, or dang, I didn't even think about that. That's the purpose of this, for us to share collectively and help everyone get where you want to go. And so, I think it's kind of appropriate for us to kind of talk about what it means when we're on the phones, because I think that's where most folks struggle, is on the phone setting the appointments, right? And then when you get in the home, kind of maintaining that connectivity with the client. So I want to kind of talk about, some of those things. And this list and these points are by no means exhaustive. I mean, it's not, complete, but I think it covers a lot of the bases that I think folks can focus on to improve what you're doing to increase the number of appointments you set, the cohesiveness of the appointments, your sit rate, and then ultimately your ability to connect with the client and protect that family while they feel in complete control of the decision. And that's the ultimate Jedi mind trick, right? So when you're dealing with clients, you want to be in full control of the conversation and dictating the course and direction of that. But you want to empower the customer to feel like they're the ones making the decision, because ultimately they are, right? People love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And the thing about insurance, and some of these things that I share with customers when I talk with them, but you know, insurance can be confusing. I mean, think about this. You're licensed, right? We're licensed. And think about how confusing all the complexities of insurance is for us. And we have certifications and licenses and studied and all these other things. So the average consumer, the average client tends to be overwhelmed and confused by the complexities of insurance. So I think by connecting with folks in a genuine and real way and kind of translating that into a communication that they can understand clearly and they can feel like they understand and are empowered to make their own decision is really, I think, what has allowed me to be successful in this business so far. So there's a couple of pieces to that. The phone, getting in the home, increasing your appointments and such like that. So I think, you know, first and foremost with the phones, it has everything to do with your posture and your confidence on the phone. When you're making these calls, first of all, I'm going to go upstream. I'm going to back that up. First of all, if you are not making the required number of dials, which means having adequate leads, and I don't mean because you bought some leads 3 weeks ago and you worked through them and nobody answered the phone. You need to make a second and third pass through those, and you need to be disciplined enough to go back in and get you more leads. One thing that I don't think people understand sometimes in sales is you have what's called a pipeline that you build in your business. And when you first start off, you don't have a pipeline. You're just dealing with people fresh that you're talking to, but then people get frustrated when folks cancel or they have to reschedule or their kid got sick and all those other things. That is a normal part of this business. Get over it. Go get you some more appointments, get you some more leads, get back in the mix. Stop worrying about Miss Johnson who wasn't there last Tuesday. If she comes back into the mix, she happens to get back into the mix. If I told you all the numbers of people that canceled, no-showed, canceled their policy, didn't take the policy, no porched me, it'd blow your mind. But I don't care, because those aren't the people I was meant to be here for. The people that I helped last year and the families that I touched, those are the folks that I'm meant to be here for. And you have to make sure that you keep that compartmentalized from an emotional perspective. Okay? So, but you've got to have at-bats and you got to have fresh leads to call, because you will build a pipeline. Some people, you know, it's a bit counterintuitive, but some people think, well, I bought leads and I couldn't get any sales. I need to get some sales before I can buy some more leads. That is absolutely the wrong way to think about it. You've got to go get you some more leads no matter what, because that next batch of leads might be 4, 5, 6, 8 sales in there, but you'll never know if you don't go into opt and get you some more, because you're worried about the 3 that you set last week and 2 of them porched you. And the one guy wants to think about it. You can't do that. You got to keep chopping away, because those same no-shows canceled, that happens to all of us. Jeremiah, myself, pick your, Ed Pritchett, doesn't matter. Pick your person. It happens to everybody. So that's first and foremost, making sure you have enough people to call. But I think, at a more granular level, the issue is when you get on the phone, connecting with clients. I think sometimes people have a tendency to be a little robotic or sound scripted and canned in their call. You can't do that. Just be genuine, be real. When you sound robotic, that's why people hang up, because they think you're a robocall. It's got to be from your spirit and from your heart. It's got to be genuine and true, and people can feel that. And I don't know how many, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are experienced will understand and agree with me on that, and some other newer folks that might not really understand what I'm saying. But trust me, you have to be focused on your posture and confidence, and you have to be large and in charge on the phone, in your tonality, your word choice, your delivery, and your confidence. People can hear your mood through your phone, through your voice, right? So those things are all very, very important for you to keep in mind when you're on the phone. And you have to know that you're genuinely calling these people to do right by them and to help a family. And those folks will listen to you. The folks that aren't interested, the folks that you're not meant to connect with, they're going to hang up. They're going to curse you out. They're going to, say, call me back later, and then block your number. That happens to everybody. Again, get over it, right? But when you connect with folks on the phone, your ability to be genuine is what has to set you apart from people. And so I think sometimes folks get on the phones and they just dial, set appointments, and then they run the appointments, and then they get no-showed and porched and get frustrated, right? Julie, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, John Paul. And I totally agree with you. And something that I can bring and help share with everybody in the group to that point, doing the phone work, is bringing it from a past life, if you will. If you need to, put a mirror in front of your face while you're on the phone dialing, and make sure you're smiling, because people can hear that energy coming through.
Right.
And if that's what it takes until you can acclimate yourself to projecting that personality and the personability to the people on the phone, your clients, which I tell all of my team and I tell my clients, I hope you like me because you have me for the rest of your life. You're extended family, you know. And so that's what you're looking at building from the moment that you dial that number. That's all I got to add to help you.
Yeah, no worries. No, you're right. I was actually grabbing a paper that I needed, but no, that's exactly right. You have to understand how clients hear you on the phone, and it's no different than how they see you when they meet you, right? That's extremely important. If you don't understand that, then that's part of your challenge, right? So the key is you got to be able to connect with clients on the phone and in the home. People want to do business with somebody that they feel comfortable with and that they genuinely feel like has their best interest at heart. And I know everybody in this call is of that mindset, or you wouldn't be here, right? We're not here just to churn and burn and sell people things for the most commission we can make. You know, we're here to find the right solution. The money will follow. The success comes after the fact of when you take care of people. And I tell clients, you know, when I meet with them, I say, look, and the way I approach this genuinely, as I take every situation and I look at that, what the client has shared with me, and I'll tell them, I say, look, Ms. Johnson, the way I look at this is if you were my grandmother, I'm going to make the recommendation to you exactly what I would say to my grandmother, because of all the information that I understand in your particular situation, what would I do or for her, or what would I recommend that she does? And you know what? I learned a long time ago that if you always do right by folks, you can never be wrong. And they feel that. They know that you have, because they've talked to people that want to fast talk them and just run through numbers and just want to run off to the next appointment. You got to slow down a little bit. Make yourself a little different. Because remember, some of these people may have filled out other response forms and their phones are blowing up and other people are fast talking them or sounding robotic, and they just want to turn and burn and set an appointment because they expect that 75% of them won't be there the day they go out there. You know, or they're going to run in, throw some numbers at them and expect them to sign up or ditch them and go. Slow down a little bit enough to connect with these people and be genuine. And it starts on the phone. It's not necessarily just when you get to the house. So the way I approach this is I take my time on the phone a little bit. I'm not trying to get caught up for a half an hour on a phone call to set an appointment. That's not what I'm saying. But slow down enough to be genuine and connect with people and make sure you understand what they're looking for and their why. So, you know, when we're on the phone with folks, you got to establish rapport. They've got to have confidence in you. You got to make a connection. I think far too many times what happens is folks, you know, go through some basic information and just move on, you know. But the way I start my phone script off is when the phone rings, you know, I'll tell the phone's at ring, 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 and she'll answer the phone, say, for instance, and I'll say, Tina, hey, this is John Paul Vetter. I'm actually the field underwriter for the mortgage coverage for your house there at 123 Main Street in Lawrenceville. Hey, you had gotten some letters and postcards from me in the last couple of weeks that explained that there may be some coverage options available that could actually help pay off the mortgage for you and Mr. Johnson if, God forbid, something were to happen to either of you, or if you were actually out of work for an extended period due to, say, an injury or an illness, could help make the mortgage payments. You remember that, right? Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate you filling that back out and sending it back to me. I got that. And I'm actually assigned the case file here. I live in the Atlanta area myself. I'm over in Marietta, and I just want to take a few minutes to gather a little information so that I can be able to confirm a few of the details on here and then find the best way to help you out, okay? So I'm an independent agent and insurance broker. And what that means is I have access to over 40 major insurance carriers, and I don't work for a specific insurance company. I work for you. So I can represent your family as an advocate and be able to find the appropriate coverage for the lowest premiums that's the best fit, anything you'd qualify for to protect your family. Does that make sense? And I'm using tie downs during my call with these folks. And I'll start off by asking questions about, now that's in DeKalb County, right? I know it's in DeKalb County. I can see it on the lead sheet. And you put on here your birthday is September 14th of 1972. Is that correct? Perfect. And you said you don't smoke, right? You hear the way I'm saying, I'm just conversational, the way I'm talking with folks, right? It's also confirming that I do have the information, but I'm conditioning the customer to answer questions of mine. I don't just jump right into more invasive questions about health conditions. I'm programming the client to answer simple questions for me. So when I get down to that, to the next questions, I'll say things like, okay, perfect. So as it relates to any medical concerns or issues for either you or Mr. Johnson, I mean, any issues with, say, high blood pressure, heart conditions, sleep apnea, stroke, cancers, diabetes, anything like that? So no, so nothing now or in the near past for either of you? Outstanding. Awesome. Well, as you can imagine, some of the information and stories I get from folks can be pretty serious. And if I can help those folks, you know I'm going to be able to do a great job for the both of you because you're in great shape and health, and neither of you even smoke. Awesome. I appreciate that. And so what kind of work do you do? Okay, awesome. And your husband? Oh, he's a truck driver. Okay, awesome. Now I'm making a mental note of that because the accidental death in those scenarios is automatically be part of what I'm going to pitch to this client based on employment. Now, do either of you actually have any life insurance currently? Okay, now that's through your employer, right? Yeah, I'm fishing. I want them to tell me it's through their employer because now I'll say, hey, Ms. Johnson, that's great. I can appreciate the fact that you've got coverage through your employer, and that's more than a lot of people would have. But keep in mind, an employer-based policy is predicated on your employment. It's because you work there. If you ever got fired, laid off, quit, downsizing, merger, the company went out of business, or you just decided to find another opportunity, when you walk out the door, that policy would leave with you. You know that, right? No, I didn't know that. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that, right? So, but more importantly, what I explain to them is by having a policy in place for yourself that's completely independent, that's yours no matter where you go or where you work, is always the best strategy because it's never going to go anywhere. You're not going to find yourself in a situation where you had coverage, your employer got laid off, and then now you're looking for insurance later on, but you had some medical concerns and now it's extremely expensive or you can't qualify. So I'm planting the seed then that the employer-based policy is not necessarily good enough. And then when I get in the home, if I have a client that says, an example, you know, that they got, you know, $300,000 life insurance policy, you know, I'll break it down. If they got a $200,000 house and they want to pay that thing off and they got 2 little kids. This is a real example I had with a lady a couple months ago. Actually, it was last fall. It's longer than a couple of months, but she had like $500,000, right? And she was proud of that, right? She had $500,000, but so I said, you know, hey, you know what, Miss Johnson, anonymity, that's absolutely outstanding. That's more than most people have. So let's take a look at that, right? Because my job is to try to find ways to complement what you currently have, not replace good plans you already have in place. And I'm giving you a high five right now for having $500,000 in place where most people don't even have that. But let's look at your particular situation and see if that's enough, right? Can we do that? Get her permission. Okay, perfect. So you've got $500,000 and the house is $300,000, right? You're single, divorced, you shared that with me, and you've got 2 girls that are 8 and 11 years old. So if God forbid something were to happen to you, you have $500,000 to pay off the house, to take 3 of it, that only leaves $200,000 left over. And how much do you make a year? Don't, just bear with me, this will make sense. Annually, about what do you make? She said, I make $100,000 a year. Perfect. So you've got 2 years worth of lost income that is going to be left after the house is paid off and the girls are 8 and 11 years old. That's not enough. And as she opened, her eyes kind of got wide. She realized that on paper, $500,000 looked like a lot. But by the time it was all said and done to pay off the house, which is what she wanted to do, and have enough for the girls, it just wasn't enough because she wasn't thinking about loss of future income. These are real stories you have to tell with people and examples you need to use with folks so they can understand the need for the coverages that you can help them with, right? It's not good enough to just go in and spit numbers at them in premiums. They have to connect that decision emotionally to what it means to themselves and their family. Does that make sense? So by the time I explained that to her, she realized she needed a separate standalone policy that would pay off the house for $300,000, and then she would still have $500,000 left over. That's a little different situation. Now, if the kids were adults and they were gone or already out of college and things like that, I mean, certainly then the scenario would change slightly, right? So we have to look at all of those situations with the client and make those proper recommendations. But don't be afraid to tell stories with folks and share that with people of how it can impact their lives and how this can help complement what they might already have, right? So that was just one example. But then I get down to and I know I'm going quickly here because I want to be mindful of time, of course. But I also want to confirm, once I get done with that and identify what coverages they already have, I ask them, okay, perfect. Because there's a lot of different programs and policies that are out there, Ms. Johnson. I want to make sure I make the right recommendation. Not only did you qualify for, but that the solution meets the desired outcome and the needs that you want, right? So tell me a little bit about who would be the beneficiary in this case. Who would you want to protect if, God forbid, something were to happen to you? Tell me a little bit about that. And I let them talk. Well, my daughter, she's 17 years old. And your daughter's name? Mia? Outstanding. The rest of the conversation, I'm referencing Mia. I say, so just so you understand, so this policy would pay Mia directly. So she would be able to have that money to completely pay out. So I'm tying that conversation into the intended beneficiary. So every time they hear that, it's tugging at their heartstrings a little bit because that solution is connected to the pain or the concern that they have. And they understand how making this decision will assuage said concern and fit what they want to accomplish. You got to use that terminology, but you got to be genuine and real with folks so they understand that you really do care about what they're doing. And it has to be real. It can't be fake. People will snip that shit out quicker than you know. You can't be fake. You got to be real. And it's got to be from your heart. But I promise you, I've had more people invite me to their family barbecues and give me dinner while I'm there and then want to pack me a lunch to take with me and invite me back. I get customers that call me just to see how I'm doing. I had an 82-year-old lady call me last week that said, I don't know if you remember me, Mr. John Paul, but I would just call. I was thinking about you. And she said I was at church and I was praying on something and that you crossed my mind and I was just thinking about you because I remembered, our connection. And she called me out of the blue. When you have people doing that, you've made a difference for folks. And that's what it's about. Be real and be genuine with people. But so that's, in a nutshell, I mean, that's kind of the phone script that I go through, just so you hear some of the verbiage. I use things like field underwriter. You filled out some letters and postcards that we sent to you. I appreciate you filling it back and filling it out and send it back to me, right? I'm an independent agent, no insurance broker, so I have access to 40 different insurance companies, but I actually work for you and your family. So make all those connections so they understand very quickly in that brief conversation who you are, what you can do, and how you can help these people, right? Because the whole point is if you're establishing rapport and gaining their confidence and making a connection, you're connecting to the customer's why, and you've identified the beneficiary. You have the client. You want to give them a reason to look forward to your visit, is my point. They want to understand why you're coming to see them. It's not going to prevent everybody from porching you or no-showing your kids getting sick or got stuck at work. That happens. But you'll significantly reduce the scenario when those things happen because the client inevitably is looking forward to the visit because they understand the purpose of your coming by. And I never say I'm going to set an appointment. I never say I'm going to schedule an appointment with you for next Tuesday. I'm just going to stop by for a quick visit, 20, 30 minutes. I'm going to show you what I've come up with, answer all y'all's questions, make sense of all this, make a couple of recommendations to you so you understand how this can help you and your family. And then you tell me what you're comfortable with. Is that fair enough? I do that on the appointment setting call. So they don't feel like I'm going to come and beat them up in the house when I get there. And they're excited because I'm different. I'm different than the other people that might have called them or any other sales experience that they might have had. And they can hear the fact that I'm not going to pressure them. I'm going to teach them and show them what's come up. And they're going to be in complete control because they are. Ultimately, if a client tells me that they can only afford $75 a month, I'm not trying to sell them a $140 a month policy. I might go in and show them some other benefits and things with the different writers, which we'll talk about here in a second in the bundling conversation, but they might tweak it and bump it to maybe $82, $83. It's a little bit above where they're saying they're comfortable with, but only if they see value in the addition. Julia, go ahead.
Thanks, John Paul. Quick question for you, because I know that this is something that rings true for a lot of folks, including myself. When you're building that rapport, we're here to help them. And I know symmetry is all about the balance in life and work and all of that. What would you say to anyone who is obviously pouring their heart out, making that connection, building that rapport with that family, wanting to help, letting them do the in-home presentation as you suggested to it, so that they feel that they're the ones in control making the decision after showing the propositions to them or proposals. When someone does, you've built this up, how would you recommend, or what would you say to someone, a new agent who says, okay, I've done all of this, but man, they porched me, because there's so much emotional involvement, to ensure that it doesn't deflate a new agent when there is a problem? How can you guard against that, or what do you do specifically to guard against something like that, and yet still be able to make that connection?
Yep, that's a great question. So when I say make the connection emotionally, it's not you that's pouring into the client emotionally. You're just being real and genuine in who you are and what you can do for the client. They're the ones you're trying to uncover the emotion in, because they're the ones who have to connect to that decision. You have to be completely detached emotionally from what's going on, because you can't ever let yourself get too high or too low emotionally in this business, because you're going to have good days and bad days. It happens to all of us, right? You know, the point is, if you let it swing you emotionally from one end of the spectrum to the other, it's going to wear you the hell out. You can't do that. You have to be even keel. And you substitute that by activity, numbers of appointments to get connected with other people that are going to want to see you and you can protect. So it dilutes the, you know, if I had 5 appointments and 4 of them all porch me, I'm salty. I mean, I'm a little, frustrated, but that last one I might write for $2,600 and made the whole damn day worthwhile, right? Some of those other people will fall into my pipeline later on, and I'll catch them up next week or next month, and some people will never call me back. You have to understand that that's part of this business. And I think you can keep yourself as a new agent from becoming too emotionally rattled by just understanding that that's part of the game, and know that that's going to happen. So don't let yourself get so emotionally attached to the appointment. That's not my point. You just be real and genuine so that the customer feels that, and you connect them to the emotional need for the solution you can help provide them with. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. And I think too, there's another part of that. Maybe I didn't ask the question correctly, that when we are genuine, we're genuinely caring about making sure that we can help them. But there comes a point in time, because we all have hearts, we're all genuine in that respect. But it's that fine line of being genuine, but ensuring that you're not getting too emotionally involved.
Right. No, I think, and I think it still goes on what I said. I mean, what happens is people get too wrapped up, people get too emotionally involved when they only have a couple of appointments and they fell off, or they have 1 or 2 appointments. I think because now they feel like they had a wasted day, right? If you have more appointments available during that day, and some of those natural porches, no shows, cancels, reschedules, or no sales, those happen, you still have a successful day by having other sales. So I think that in and of itself can dilute that, but you don't want to let yourself get too emotionally attached. And it's hard, I know. You don't want to let
with people.
You see, what you have to understand is this: you're trying to connect with folks on the phone, right? To understand and make that connection, to reduce the chances that they'll no-show you, or that you'll get porched, or they'll have to reschedule. But you have to keep in mind a couple of things. These people do not know you if they saw you at the mall on Saturday. Stop taking it personally. They didn't no-show you specifically. They could have had their kid fell off a bike and had to go to the emergency room. They could have got stuck at work. Life happens. So when you expect that those things are going to happen, you already built it into the equation, so you don't let yourself get too upset about it, right? Because some of those people are going, right, and I can see your hand motions there, Julia, but if you have 15 appointments on the week, I think is what you're trying to say, is, you know that that's going to happen. I've shared it like a couple of weeks ago. I had 8 appointments on the day. 8. All of them went down for one reason or another. But you know what? That was maybe 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. But since then, I've recovered and I've met at least 4 of those folks and already sold them since. A couple of them were last Saturday, and I don't normally run on Saturday. And I had 5 on Saturday, and I had a couple that rescheduled into no sale and one that porched me or whatever. I mean, I don't get emotionally connected to that because I've been around long enough to know that that's just part of the game. So I don't take it personally. My objective is to set quality appointments with people who look forward to my visit and know that I'm coming to help them. So I reduce the chances of that happening in the first place, but it still happens. Don't take it personally. They're not rejecting you as a person. They just might have had something come up in their life. You don't know what could have happened. They could have had a letter from the IRS came before you showed up for the appointment, and they freaked the hell out about owing this money to the IRS, and they're not worried about your insurance appointment. Stop taking that personally. You don't need to know the fact that they got an IRS letter. They're not going to tell you that, but what I'm saying, I'm just making up hypotheticals, right? But you don't know why that customer had to reschedule or no show you or what may or may not have happened. I had a gentleman 2 weeks ago who porched me. I talked to the guy. This is a true story, and I'm gonna tell you, I was pissed. I called him before I left this house. This was about 3 weeks ago, actually. I called him before I left the house. Other side of Atlanta. It's almost a 3-hour round trip, 2 hours and 50 minutes round trip for me. I spoke to him, called him, told him I was on the way. He said, "Come on, I'm here." I'd already rescheduled with the guy twice. This is a 3rd appointment. "I'm home. I'm off today. Come on. I know we need to do this." I drive all the way out there, called him when I'm on the way. He didn't answer, but I'm already halfway there then because I got caught in a little bit of traffic. Get to the house, call, knock, doorbell, text, nothing. Waited for 15 minutes. You don't think I was pissed? Nothing. So I left and went to my other appointment, next appointment. The guy followed back up with me the next week and apologized profusely. His mother passed away. He got a phone call after I spoke to him and literally had to pick up his stuff and jump in the car and drive to Florida. Stop taking stuff personally. It's not that they're rejecting you. People have things that happen in life. Get them back in the loop and get them in your pipeline. You're going to get some of them, and you're not going to get some of them. That's the point. It happens to everybody, and don't take things personally, because if you do that, you're gonna run yourself ragged, and you can't do that. Focus on the people that you can help. The other people you'll build a pipeline on. You've seen me share stories on GroupMe where there was a customer last July that literally was in the first batch of leads that I bought when I first started, like the 3rd week of July when I first came in, and I just ran a couple of appointments. He was in my 50-cent lead, very first batch of leads I bought, like 3rd week of July. Literally called and talked. 1 year later, almost to the day, it was about a week and a half short of being a full year when I first got the lead. Last July, guaranteed issue, AIG, $1,200. And he was grateful that I was able to reconnect with him because he'd almost passed away a couple of times. He had severe medical concerns and in and out of the hospital and this and that and the other. That's why they cut off part of his foot. I mean, just great, but that's why. What if I've taken that personally because the people, no-showed me the first time I was supposed to meet them back in August of 18? So that's a great point. Stop becoming emotionally attached to yourself. If you have more emotional fluctuations happen when you only have 3 or 4 appointments and three of them report you a no-show, or 4 of them no-show, you're canceled, right? Or sit no sale. If you have 15 appointments, you have those same 4 or 5 people no-show, port you, cancel, whatever, and you still made 6 sales, you don't give a damn. Sure, you're going to reschedule them and put them back into the pipeline and so on. That's part of the business, but that's your fault for not having enough appointments. So be proactive in mitigating that scenario in the first place.
John Paul,
yeah, Jeremiah.
It all boils down to control what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control if they pick up the phone. You can't control if they're home when you get there. You can't control if they're going to say yes when you get there. Now,
right.
You use things to do in your scripting and in your things to help alleviate a lot of that,
right.
But the end of the day, you still can't control it. What you can control is your effort, your attitude, and how many appointments you put on the board. You know,
That's right.
people ask me all the time, how do you get 8 appointments in one day? Well, because I'll put them in 4 hours, because I'm only worried about not being able to sit with enough families to protect, at the end of the day, to protect my family's livelihood, right?
Yep.
So I'm not worried about missing one or having to reschedule one, or I can't get to them on time or whatever. I'm worried about making sure I've got enough to sit with. So yeah, you all of this stuff is just really so important that the sooner you can grab a hold of that, especially for the new folks, the sooner you can grab a hold of that posture and just realize that you're the one in control of your income,
Right.
not your clients. It's
Right.
not the clients, it's you. You
That's
have
right.
to put enough on your board, you know, to be able to do that. And I loved your see, everybody's a little different in their scripting. And the one thing that I think you would agree with this, John Paul, I hope so. But just make sure if you're brand new, like John Paul has got 18 months, he's got a lot of experience. So some of this stuff you probably knew looking at the script saying, well, that's not on there. He now can innovate. You know, we all get to the point where we can innovate, but in the beginning, just make sure you're imitating, and then it's all about just the tone and, you know, the speed of your voice. But anyway, I don't mean to interrupt your call, because
no, that's good.
but just control what you can control.
Yep.
You know, because the whole point is, you know, it's like you said, it's not personal. It sucks. You know, we all want it to be easy, but it's not. But that's why they pay us like they do, you know, because you have to have that thick skin to be able to do that. Casey, I heard one time, he said, when someone cancels or no shows or not home when he gets there, he's just laughing on the way to the car and saying, hey, that's why we get paid. That's why they pay us, because I can handle that where other people can't. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, Jeremiah. And so in the interest of time, I want to move on there. But the whole point is connecting with the client on the phone. I think so, in summarizing, I think people want to just set a quick appointment and expect, oh, I'll connect with them when I get there. You may never get that chance. Connect with them on the phone so that you give the customer a reason to look forward to your visit. Does that make sense? So then when you get in the home, you already have rapport. You kind of pick that ball back up, and you know, it's like you're visiting an old friend to a certain extent, because you've already established and gotten to know these people, right? So you continue that conversation in the home. But you know, what I do, you know, I get a lot of questions about bundling and such like that. So I think it's very important. I'm going to see if I can share this screen. Jeremiah, let me know if it works. I mean, I'll see it here in a second, actually, myself. So hold on a second. Share my screen. Let me see if it's up there. There it is. Was it got that now? All right, perfect. Everybody can see the screen? I can't see you guys. Jeremiah, can you guys see it?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
All right, cool. All right. So now we're talking about bundling, right? And in the home. And I know when you're new, you want to write these things out on your quote sheets and things like that, because you need to learn what you're doing before you get in the house, you know, and have a proper course of action. But as you get more seasoned and more veteran at this thing, what I do personally is I run numbers for the client live in the home, because I have access to my agent portal here, depending on what I go with. And so I'm able to look at these with the client to gain their buy-in. So I can explain the different coverage options to the client, the different riders and such, and they can see the impact to the monthly premium. So again, they feel empowered to make a decision about what's important to them. So you're able to, strengthen the value proposition with the different options, right? So as an example, a customer may say, well, $100,000 face value, you know, for X amount of money. In this case, let's look at this. Let's say generate quote. This is American Amicable. I do write a lot of my business with American Amicable. Pick your company. I'm at Mutual of Omaha. I do too. You know, they're another great company. You may do Foresters. You may do Americo. You know, I'm just going to use Home Certainty from American Amicable for this example, just so you can see this, right? And I'm going to use simple numbers, not to get too complicated. And I'm going to show you some of how these things work in here. But you have to reach out to each carrier yourself and understand the differences of the riders and what those particulars are with that particular insurance company. If you are not calling the sales support team and the marketing team at each insurance company yourself to run through and understand the riders and different optional coverages and stuff like that, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And I don't and I don't mean call your upline to ask them all the time, because if you call me about Foresters or Americo, I'm not going to know what to tell you. I've never written Americo or Foresters policy personally. But American Amicable, Mutual of Omaha, UHL, different people have different experiences and like different carriers, and they're all great for different reasons. The point is, I wouldn't necessarily be able to give someone direction with Americo or Foresters, whereas they can get the right answers by just calling the sales desk. Go write it with Foresters or Americo if that's who you like. I just might not be able to answer that question just because I've never written with them. And that's just honest, right? Other people may be able to talk completely from a position of confidence about Americo or Foresters, but never write with American Amicable. And so, but the sales desk is always open. Utilize these resources that we have available to us and make sure that you are educating yourself. This is your business, right? So another thing I think, and I'll get into some options here, but I think another scenario that people miss sometimes is telling stories, right? To gain buy-in. Don't just throw numbers up there and say, hey, there's an accidental death. You know, you like that? Or, you know, I mean, what does that mean, right? Talk to them. Say, you know, so in addition, if, say, for instance, God forbid, you were in a car wreck on 285, I use the 285 because I'm in Atlanta. Use your favorite highway near where you're at, or whatever that means, that people can connect with. You want people to visualize the scenario. I know it's difficult to talk about things, but if any of us in any city look at the news tonight, God forbid, there's going to be somebody that got killed somewhere because of some damn car wreck, a drunk driver, 18-wheeler. Here in Atlanta a few weeks ago, Jesus, there was a car, traffic was backed up off a ramp that always gets backed up onto the highway because of the timing of that light. And this young girl, I think 19, was in her little car, and the traffic was backed up onto the far right lane because there was so much traffic, and a damn 18-wheeler fuel tanker truck hit her, plowed through, flipped over, and burst into flames, and both sides of the interstate were shut down for hours a couple of weeks ago. It was horrible. People in Atlanta heard about that. Nobody think that's going to ever happen to us, and it breaks my heart to even think about that with that young lady. But she didn't wake up that damn day thinking that was going to happen. You know what I mean? People have to think about this stuff. It's got to be real. The folks who find themselves in a bad situation, the folks who stick their head in the sand and think it'll never happen to me, because that kind of stuff happens to other people. Wake up. You know who other people are to everybody else? Other people. You're other people to everybody else. So stop thinking that. Put a plan in place that, if God forbid, I hope you never need it. I pray you never use this. But know that you've got that in place. You know, if something were to happen to me, and I don't want to get too emotional here on it, but if something were to happen to me and I was in a car wreck, God forbid, the last thing I would want to go through my mind is to worry about my wife and my children. And what are they going to do without me financially because I didn't have damn life insurance? And somebody's trying to do a GoFundMe or a fish fry at the church to bury me. Are you kidding me? You have to be genuine with these people so you understand how this can help them. Right? So when I say that, I mean using stories, you know. So as an example, use that scenario about car wrecks. If it's a truck driver, people that do service calls, they're on the road all the time. They know how crazy the streets are and the people are driving around. So add some value to why an accidental death benefit rider may help them, right? And so as an example, in this case, I would show this guy this policy, and I'm just using this for simplicity, right? $36.70 a month. You know, so I would say, so that's $100,000 that would pay off your house, Mr. Johnson. You know, so, but let me show you, since you're a truck driver, one of the most popular additional riders that folks would add, and I see I said that, one of the other riders that are very popular that most people would consider, now they feel like a lot of other people do this. Everybody else does it. You know, I should listen to why I should do it too, because other people are doing it. It must be smart, because it is. So as an example, if we added a $100,000 accidental death benefit rider, which would actually double the coverage, that would make it $200,000. So because that's only $46.20, right? What was the other one? You know, it's like about $8 and some change, maybe. If my math is right, I don't remember what the other one said, but you get the point, right? So you can build value there, right? So now it's $200,000. You know, if there's an accidental death scenario, right? I also would go in and say, another popular example is, you mentioned that the mortgage on the house is $850. So as an example, not only would, if you were killed in a car wreck, you know, it would pay your family, you know, you would pay your wife, I would say Maria or whatever her name is, I would pay Maria and the kids $200,000. But let's say, for instance, it's just something where you're in a car wreck and you're just injured and you're out of work for, say, a year and a half, right? People can lose their house then as well. The bank doesn't care why you didn't make mortgage payments. If you're out of work and can't make mortgage payments for a few months, they're going to come knock on the door and foreclose on the house and take the equity. So people can find themselves in a very precarious situation in that regard as well. So this policy has the option to add a disability benefit rider. So if you were to be injured or ill and out of work due to sickness or injury, it could actually make the mortgage payments for you. And that's only $63.11. But you could get $850 for up to 2 years. Now you got to check with your carrier what the specifics are, the benefit period, the elimination period, all those things you have to check with the particular carrier so you understand that, convey that appropriately to the client, right? But in this case, $850, and that's tax-free, right? It's grossed up. They may say, well, I've got disability, I got workers' comp. Yeah, well, if you're hurt at work, sure. But driving home from a party, you know, on Saturday afternoon, a kid's birthday party in a car wreck doesn't pay workers' comp. So you have to understand, educate people so they understand the difference of what this can do versus what they think they may or may not already have. Truth be told, that $850 for the monthly to cover his mortgage payments if he was out for an extended period may be more important than the $100,000 to begin with. But now you just tripped the trigger that was the most important thing in his mind for him to want to get the policy in the first place. But now you've built it to $63.11 monthly. But it does multiple things. It's a $100,000 face value plus $100,000 in accidental death and $850 in disability benefit. Does that make sense? Now you've got accident disability benefit. That would be for accident only in this particular case with American Amicable. The regular disability, it means either accident or sickness. So you want to make sure you understand what you're quoting and do that the correct way. And another example here I would explain to folks here is, say, for instance, if you were to be permanently disabled in that same car wreck or something. And this is the flow. I go to the understanding the disability benefit first. Then I go back to the waiver of premium because I say, hey, so as an example, in this case, if you were to become permanently disabled, it would actually make the payments on the policy for you for the duration of the policy, right? So as you can see, we add that only added, what is that, $2? Not even $2, right? So it's just an incremental bump, but hell, that's another feature of this. You're building value in what all this policy can do for the client. And then the last thing that would probably be most appropriate for you, Mr. Johnson, that a lot of folks take advantage of is a waiver of premium for unemployment. So if for some reason you get fired, company goes out of business, get laid off due to downsizing, something of that nature, company goes bankrupt, and you're filing unemployment benefits with the state for at least 4 weeks, then the insurance company will actually cover the payments on the policy while you're out of work as well. That only added another, not even $2. So now you've added all these other things to the policy that really check a lot of boxes for the customer's potential concern. But now you've built it up, and sure, all in, you know, you increased it for about $29, you know, but still $66 is in most people's budget. But now instead of writing a $36 policy, or let me think about it, $36, now this guy's thinking about all these things this one-stop shop policy can do for him and his family. And now you've built the APV. This is a simple example that I use in this scenario, but as you're going, and some people may not want some of those things. They may not want the waiver premium on unemployment, or they may say, hey, what if I, you know, as an example on this, you can do up to $1,500 in disability benefit. You know, what if I want more? Well, if you do up to $1,500 on this one, you can do it as a rider. If the customer wanted, say, $2,500 or $3,000, you would do PIP through Mutual of Omaha and pivot to there, and you can just run those numbers, and you should have the Quotes for Sales Professional app downloaded to your iPad or your device, so you can pull that up real quick and look at that along with children's whole life policies for their kids that are running around, and run those numbers live for them, and just show them how inexpensive it would be to add the children's whole life policies as well. You should be doing that all the time, and explain the benefit there, that it builds cash accumulation, it's guaranteed insurability, They can increase the face value at multiple points during their lifetime without having to do a paramed or do providing proof of insurability. So all those types of things, and I'm keeping an eye on the time, so I don't mean to rush a little bit here, but the point is, if you walk through, first of all, you need to understand how these things work, right? And then you need to be able to present it to the customer in a clear, understandable way so that they see the value in adding these additional coverages. And that's how you come out of the house with multiple riders and all these other things, because the customer said, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even know I could do that. Well, hell no, they didn't know, because you didn't tell them. You know, if you walk out of the house with just a basic policy, these are little things you can do that add incrementally that I did all of last year. And if you add it all up, I would say just doing these little things in totality probably added between $30,000 to $40,000 worth of APV to my production last year. These little types of things, and that's probably conservative. So the point is, make sure you understand how it can help the client, educate them as to how it can help them, and let them make the decisions about what's important to them and feel in control. And if they come back and say, I do want to make one other example. I'm going to clear this out real quick. But let them make the decision about what they feel is important, right? So I want to show you one other example that I leverage with clients, and it happens pretty frequently. Let's say, let me bump this up because I want the 200,000. Let me do something here. So 20 a year. I'm going to bump that up because I want it to be higher than that. Give me a second here. Let me bump this to 30 a year and make this guy 45 because I want you to see the numbers. It works in any example, but I want this all right. So let's say in this case right here, right, you run the numbers for this guy. It's $200,000. It's 30 a year. He's 45 years old, and $130 is just a little bit outside of his budget. You should be telling your client, or they should already have the impression that when you're going through these numbers, look, we're on the same team. Feel comfortable in being completely open and transparent with me. I want you to make sure you get the policy that you're comfortable with from a budget perspective, because if it's 10 or 20 or $30 above what you're comfortable with, it doesn't do you or your family any good or me any good for you to cancel the policy or for it to lapse 4 months from now because it was $20 too much. I want us to make sure we put a plan in place that's affordable so you have something for your family. Is that fair enough? We're on the same page, right? Perfect. Because I want you to feel comfortable with this number here on the premium amount. So yeah, well, 130 is just a little bit outside my budget. I mean, I need to be a little bit less than that. Okay, so you can run some different numbers, right? Maybe you go down to 150, and maybe that's still. Let's see what that comes out to be. Let's see what that does. Okay, that's right at $100, right? Now the guy says, I need to try to be a little bit lower than that. So watch this. The original number was 200 that we were trying to shoot for, right? What if we do 100,000 and then do $100,000 in accidental death benefit? That's still $200,000, but now it's only $79.91 and not 130 whatever dollars it just was a minute ago. Sure, the face value is only 100 versus 200, but in totality, if there's an accidental situation, it's still going to pay out $200,000. And then maybe this guy's a truck driver. Maybe the guy's working on a road crew and construction. So there's maybe a just as likelihood that he would have an accidental situation. So he can benefit, and his family would benefit from $200,000 in that situation, but it's only $80 a month instead of $130 a month. And so you can build some value there and rework those numbers if you need to try to get it where they need to go. Because then you can pitch the proposal that, hey, say, even if it were natural causes and you only owed $140,000 on the house, your wife would still, Maria would still get 100 since she's the beneficiary and would actually get the money. Because remember, this insurance company is not going to pay the mortgage company directly. She would get the 100,000. She could call the bank and tell them to refinance the other 40 grand. And now she's got a $282 a month mortgage payment. That's a lot easier pill to swallow, for the family and the kids, right? Wouldn't you agree? So now they see the fact that it's a benefit. If I don't necessarily get the whole amount, it's still going to help me and my family. If I did this, and $80 is something I can handle, whereas 130 was a little bit out, it was stretching me a little bit. And that's still a solid sale. That's still almost $1,000 APV, right? My math is right, give or take, right? So the point is, look at these different scenarios and find the right solution for folks, and make sure that they understand all the different options that are available that could help them. Because having something that's $100 a month that's just to pay off of the house, maybe not so sexy. I mean, I get it. Yeah, cool. But for $122 a month, I get accidental death and disability benefit. It'll pay my mortgage payment if I'm out and waive the premiums if I lose my job because the company, went out of business. Maybe now you get people people can afford what they feel like what they want to get because they need to stretch themselves. If it's something that they don't truly see the value in, it doesn't matter if it's in their budget or not, they may not necessarily spend that, right? So anyway, I know we're up against time and I'm a little over, so my apologies, and I'm trying to go a little bit quick through some of these things, but I hope that you've been able to get some nuggets here on what we've shared, as it relates to, connecting with the client on the phone and in the home, and kind of how to build that into your arsenal with your customer engagement, and then build value in what you provide for your clients. Julia?
Yes, and one more thing. I love how, I put it in the chat, but I love how you're allowing and doing it that way, because I'll generally, me personally, just put everything together. But I love how you are interactive in the home, because this will actually help diminish that objection, bringing it to the forefront. Well, I need to think about it. No, we're building this now.
Yep.
And I like that. I like
Yep.
that a lot.
Yeah, they're doing it with you. So they're the ones in control of what the budget, the premiums look like on the on the outcome. So if you're in the driver's seat, how are you gonna say no to yourself? And they are understanding why they're making the decisions. It goes back on what I said earlier. People can be confused about insurance. So you just going in there and saying, yeah, it's $100 a month and it'll pay off your house if you pass away. I mean, hold on, I got other questions. Wait a minute. I mean, so what does that mean? By going in there and explaining things and using stories like, hey, I want you to understand that this is not like credit life insurance, where the insurance company is going to pay the finance company directly the balance of what you owe. And it's on this house specifically, or that car, like you do in a car business. This is actually on you, no matter where you go, what house you own, who the mortgage company is, or what the balance is. Your wife, Maria, is going to get the full face value of this policy. And if there's money left over, she can have that for the kids in addition to your workplace policy. Does that make sense? And I make sure they understand what I'm saying. See, if you take the time to educate folks and they understand how this works, now people feel empowered to make their own decision. And that's what people want to do. They don't want somebody to come sell them something. They want somebody to come. Think about if it was you. You don't want somebody to come just sell you something. Don't you feel better if somebody educates you about the different options and you think and process it through, and you're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I want that and that. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. That's what I want. Let them choose, right? But you've got to connect with a client on the phone to begin with. Be genuine and real in the home. Use some of these use case scenarios. Build value in some of the riders and how it can help them, and such like that in the home, so they understand how it can help them. You want them to envision themselves in that particular situation, right? And if you don't have stories yourself that you can use from your own customer base, use stories from other folks. I remember, I don't know, it was probably a year ago, somebody shared a story, and I share this with customers, and I just say, hey, someone on my team, because it was another symmetry person. They don't know, right? I'm not lying to them, but I'm just using it. Said, hey, someone on my team. It wasn't me, but in another state, someone on my team, actually had a client that they had gotten the life policy and the accidental death benefit coverage, and the guy was working out in the back. And Jeremiah, you may remember this story, but the story was something like where the guy was working out in the country on his property and did something, clearing some debris or whatever, and got a cut and got a staph infection in the cut and went to the hospital and died like a couple of weeks later. The insurance company paid his family. Julie, was that you? Right. The insurance company actually paid the family the accidental death payout, right?
Yeah, actually, it was one of my former work associates' dad had a heart attack. Mom of my associate friend didn't believe in accidental and insurance at all.
he showed her what he got, and she goes, "You fool, you know, you shouldn't have spent your money on that if anything's going to happen because your heart attack or heart or whatever." Lo and
Right.
behold, working in the yard, staph infection, and in that time frame, he ended up passing away from an act and that was listed as an accidental death, and
Wow.
that accidental insurance policy paid off her mortgage, and she now swears by it.
Right. So use those stories, right? You just heard that from Julia. So use that story with people. You can just say another person on my team. Don't be afraid to tell stories with your folks that are real. Don't go start making stuff up, right? I'm not saying that because they'll see through that. They'll know that because your story's going to be consistent. And if they ask you more, you're going to be like, oh, see what had happened. Don't do that. Be genuine and tell real stories of how things have helped other people, because folks want to understand how it's going to help them. So anyway, we're well beyond time. My apologies to everyone. But hopefully you got a couple of nuggets on there. Angie said not nuggets, boulders. Thank you. I actually just now pulled up the comments. I'm sorry on the chat. I can't really see them live while I'm conducting the meeting because I'm not reading that. I'm actually going through the presentation. So, but good stuff. Again, I appreciate everybody. Hopefully that benefits you to some extent. Good luck and good selling, and let's get out there, get us some more leads, and get on the phones this evening, and let's get ready to jumpstart March here.